Have you ever noticed that some people seem to move through life with far less struggle, while others have to push so hard just to reach the same goals? It can look like they simply know the right people, have special knowledge, or got lucky. But the deeper reason is usually something far more personal and much closer to home. It often comes down to the way you see yourself. Your self-concept is essentially the picture you hold of who you are. It is the relationship you have with yourself. This picture is built from the beliefs you carry about your abilities, your worth, and what you think is possible for you. From those beliefs, patterns of thinking begin to form. Those thoughts create familiar feelings. Those feelings shape your experiences. Over time, they turn into habits and behaviors that guide how you show up in the world, and every time you repeat those patterns, they quietly reinforce the same image of yourself that started it all. This is why the way you see yourself matters so much. That inner picture can become a kind of invisible boundary. It can limit what feels available to you long before opportunities even reach your awareness. New ideas, possibilities, and even certain relationships may never fully appear in your life because they sit just outside the edges of what you believe fits your identity. In a way, it becomes a blind spot. Beyond that blind spot is often a different way of living. But to reach it, something important has to shift. Many of the beliefs that shape your self-concept were formed long ago and repeated so many times that they now feel completely natural. Some of them are beliefs about lack, limitation, or what you think you cannot have. The tricky part is that many of these beliefs are incredibly subtle. You might not even recognize them because they have been practiced for most of your life. They feel so familiar that they seem like facts. Sometimes they feel so natural that you start to believe they are simply who you are. And when something feels like part of your personality, you rarely stop to question it, which is exactly why the next step in this process can be so powerful. This is where your self-concept quietly turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy. The reality you experience begins to mirror the image you hold of yourself. If you believe you are limited in some way, your mind will naturally generate situations, reactions, and interpretations that seem to confirm it. The experiences you notice, the outcomes you remember, even the small everyday moments begin to look like proof that this is simply who you are. Over time, your mind becomes very skilled at gathering evidence. It looks for cues that support the story you already believe. Every coincidence, every result, every reaction from other people can start to feel like confirmation that the image you hold of yourself is true. Yet what makes this so fascinating is that much of it begins in your own perception. The mind filters reality through the beliefs it already carries. And once a belief is in place, the mind quietly searches for reasons to keep it alive. That is why these inner limitations can feel so convincing. They seem real because your attention keeps collecting proof for them. But the moment you begin to look at this process with curiosity, something changes. What once appeared solid begins to look more like a pattern that has simply been repeated for a long time, and patterns can be understood. Once they are understood, they can soften, shift, and eventually dissolve. This exploration leads you deeper than the surface-level stories of the mind. Beyond the interpretations, beyond the familiar mental narratives, there is a deeper sense of who you are that has always been present. When you begin to connect with that deeper awareness, you start to see that many of the forms and labels you once identified with were simply reflections created within the mind. They were interpretations, not the source itself. As you become more aware of the place within you where all these perceptions arise, you start to touch something much more stable. A deeper presence that has been there the entire time, a quiet, steady awareness that exists beyond passing thoughts and temporary identities. And when you reconnect with that deeper sense of yourself, something important opens up. From that place, you begin to rediscover the original pattern of who you are meant to express in this world. A truer, clearer blueprint of your individuality that was never actually lost, only hidden beneath layers of old beliefs. Once you begin to see how your inner image has been shaped by years of conditioning, you also realize that it does not have to stay that way. Your self-concept is not fixed, it can evolve. It can move away from old programming and become more aligned with who you truly are and who you are capable of becoming. This shift happens gradually through alignment. Your thoughts begin to reflect a more supportive view of yourself. Your feelings start to match the version of you that feels confident and open. Your habits and behaviors slowly move in the same direction. Even your beliefs begin to expand. When these inner elements start to work together, something interesting happens. The life around you begins to mirror that change. Reality often reflects the way you see yourself, so when your self-concept grows, the opportunities, experiences, and relationships that appear in your life begin to change as well. What once felt difficult can start to feel surprisingly natural. The constant sense of pushing and forcing begins to soften. Instead of struggling to make life happen, you begin to move with a quiet sense of direction. That has always been present. In many ways it is far simpler than we have been taught to believe. We often hear that everything must be achieved through constant effort and pressure. Yet when your inner world becomes clear and aligned, the outer world tends to follow more easily. Of course, this perspective is not always encouraged. If more people truly trusted their inner direction and stepped fully into who they are, many would no longer feel the need to follow the same patterns or expectations that everyone else follows. But you do not have to accept an idea just because you hear it. The most powerful step is to explore it in your own life and observe what happens. One helpful way to understand this shift is through a simple three-part model. The first part is identity. This is about recognizing your deeper sense of self, beyond the labels and stories you have collected over time. The second part is alignment. Once you begin to sense that deeper identity, you gradually bring your thoughts, emotions, habits, and beliefs into harmony with it. By the way, I'm curious about your experience with this. What belief about yourself has shaped your life the most so far? Share it in the comments. I read them and they often inspire future videos. And if you enjoy exploring ideas like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next ones. And the third part is manifestation. When your inner world reflects your true nature more clearly, the experiences that appear in your life begin to reflect it as well. It all begins within you. When you understand that you are the source of the way you experience life, you also realize that you are the starting point for every meaningful shift that follows. So the real invitation is simple, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. Begin to change the image you hold of yourself, change the relationship you have with yourself, notice the quiet way you describe who you are in your own mind. Pay attention to the phrases that live beneath the surface, thoughts such as I'm lucky, I'm successful, things work out for me, or the opposite versions that sometimes appear. These are not just random sentences, they carry a feeling, they reveal how you relate to yourself at a deeper level. This is why the final step is not really about repeating affirmations. It is about becoming aware of the affirmations that are already running inside your mind every day. The way you judge yourself, the way you speak to yourself when something goes well or when it doesn't, the quiet emotional tone you hold toward your own life. When you start observing this inner dialogue with honesty and curiosity, something powerful happens. You begin to understand the relationship you truly have with yourself, and once you see that clearly, everything that does not match your deeper nature gradually loses its grip, old beliefs soften, old reactions fade. The connection with your authentic self becomes stronger and more natural. From that place, the relationship you have with yourself begins to feel very different. It is no longer built on pressure or constant self-evaluation. Instead, it carries a sense of openness, possibility, and trust. In that space, abundance is no longer something you chase, freedom is no longer something you try to earn. They begin to feel like natural expressions of who you are. There is also a deeper kind of joy there. A quiet sense of love for life that does not depend on external proof or temporary symbols of success. It is not created by controlling every detail of your life or by constantly trying to prove your worth. Your worth was never something that needed proof. It becomes clearer the moment you remember your true nature, a deeper awareness within you that has always been present, a vast field of consciousness from which every idea, every possibility, and every experience can arise. When you begin to recognize that and align yourself with that deeper version of who you are, the life you wish to experience no longer feels distant. You start expressing it from within, here and now. And from that inner alignment, the outer world naturally begins to reflect it. If you'd like to explore this more deeply, I've created a free self-inquiry workbook that will help you uncover the beliefs shaping your self-concept and reconnect with your authentic self. You can download it using the link in the description.